In today's video, I'm going to show you how my family and I do some no-frills healthy eating during the holidays. And we definitely indulge. That's part of the reason, in our opinion, why it makes the season so special is we're having lots of treats and pies, and we have all the things. We have all the rich dishes that we don't normally have. For us, this is part of what makes this time of year so special. So it's not something that I'm looking to take away. But personally, I have noticed over the years, as I've gotten older, it has become especially crucial that I treat my body really well because my immune system will suffer. For me, this works, and I just wanted to share it with you by taking you into my kitchen. Maybe it'll give you some ideas. Without further ado, let's head in there.
If you're new here, welcome to Mrs. Crunchy, where we discuss natural living in a modern world. Now, greens are something that I really like to incorporate into my meals because I know how good that they are for you, and they make me feel good when I eat them, and they're something that are readily available during the winter. So all kinds of collard greens, which are what these are, and I had some kale in my fridge too, but they look the most sad. So I wanted to use them up first. And I have found it's really nice to have a stash of greens on hand. I learned this because my good friend came into town and she brought me some Swiss chard from her garden. It was already pre-washed, pre-cut up in a plastic bag, and we used that for tons and tons of meals after she left, and I forgot how nice it is to just have that ready to go. So that inspired me to rinse off all my collard greens, chop them up finely, and I actually chop them up a little bit finer than I normally would because of my son. Then I just put them in a Tupperware, or you could use a plastic bag if you wanted, and then you can just pop them into whatever you want, whenever you want. I find that during the holidays, because I am indulging in such rich and, I don't know, luxurious foods, that I like to keep the other things pretty simple. So simple preparations, not too heavy. So in this case, I had a little bit of leftover chicken bone broth in my fridge. So I used that, but I didn't have quite enough, so I had to add some water to it as well. And then I just sauteed some of my prepared greens, a little bit of salt and pepper, and I actually just happened to have a little bit of nutmeg from something else that I was making, so I grated that in. If you've never had just a touch of fresh nutmeg grated in with your greens, you can give it a try. I think it's something really good, and I think it was my aunt actually who told me to do this, and it just has a really nice flavor to it, and it's something seasonal. You could add a touch of cream or cheese if you wanted to, but like I said, I just like to keep this simple, and I just drizzled some olive oil over it, maybe add a squeeze of lemon if you want, and I ended up serving this with an egg that my husband had made some fried eggs earlier in the day, and so I just had one of those with some greens, and it made for a healthy and quick breakfast. As far as the stems of my greens, I actually saved them and I put them in a plastic bag, which I keep in my freezer, and I just add them to bone broths whenever I make them for a little extra nutrition. The next thing I like to eat a lot of during the winter is fermented food, and I'm making yogurt today, and honestly you can make this as easy or as, I'm not going to say difficult because it's not hard, but as more involved as you want it to, as your time, schedule, desire allows. I make my own kefir at home. We get milk and I just have the kefir grains, and what you see is I'm actually straining it. I use a wooden spoon and I just tie it up in a linen and let it drain, and this serves a twofold purpose. The first one is that I will use the leftover whey. So I think of Little Miss Muffet eating her curds and whey. So I take the whey and I will use it in like probiotic drinks. So maybe I'll show you that in another video sometime, but I'll use it to make like a sparkling lemonade that I got the recipe from Nourishing Traditions. That book is wonderful if you don't have it. But this case, I didn't really have a purpose for the whey. So once everything was strained, I just stored the whey in my fridge for the next time I wanted to use it. And I could have let this go longer. I've let it go pretty long, and the kefir will actually get as thick as a Greek yogurt, which is nice. But this did the trick, and something I really enjoy is sort of like my late night treat, if you will, is those flavored yogurts that come in the individual containers at the store. But maybe it's just the stores around me. I have found it's difficult to find ones with grass-fed dairy, and so that's why I prefer to make my own if I can, and it's definitely cheaper. So I had some leftover cranberry orange sauce from Thanksgiving. I don't eat it just on Thanksgiving. I truly love this, so I will make a double batch and I keep some in my freezer. So I had some left over, and so I took a generous portion of it, and I just added it to it, and it's just this gorgeous scarlet color, and I just stirred it around, and then I had this luscious cranberry orange good for you probiotic filled yogurt, and it wasn't quite sweet enough for me, so I added a little bit of maple syrup as well. As I mentioned, you can definitely adjust this for whatever your time, schedule, and budget allows. You can just buy the best quality yogurt that you can afford at the store and just plop it in with a scoop of your favorite preserves, and it can be that simple. Now, for those of you that have seen the past two things that I've made and you're like, I don't even have time for that, that just looks too hard, then I just want to encourage you that I don't always make things from scratch. I have a bunch of fresh fruit out, and I noticed that not just with myself, but with my son and my husband too, that whatever is out on our counters is more likely to be eaten. Whatever is easiest. Even if something's tucked away in a cupboard, it's not hard to open it, obviously, but if something's out, especially my toddler, he'll just point to it and want it. So I try to keep healthier things out for that reason, and I hide the chips. So I've got some of the mandarin oranges. They're a perfect size for my son. He likes them. And I've got some pears and apples. The pears still have the stickers on them, yes, because if I pull them off, then the skin comes off and I don't know, I get fruit flies, so I've left them on. But these colors are just gorgeous to look at anyway. And it doesn't get any simpler than this. I mean, how long does it take to just peel a piece of fruit or rinse off a piece of fruit and eat it? And it's so good, and they're in season, so they're affordable, and they taste the best right now as well. The other easy snack that I like to keep out are raw nuts. So I have almonds in this case. I also have walnuts, which, to be honest, I'm not a huge walnut fan. I like it in things, but on their own, they taste a little bitter to me. So it's something that I have just trying to model for my son that I'm going to eat, because I don't always eat for taste, but because it's good for me. So I try to keep something out on the counter like this. And especially if you're going to indulge in like a meal that you know maybe isn't so good for you, you could try sometimes just having a handful of nuts beforehand, and that way it'll fill you up a little bit so you're not as hungry and you don't feel like you have to eat as much of whatever thing you're trying not to eat too much of. Another way I try to get some more fermented foods in us is by serving a little bit of fermented foods with every meal. And let me tell you, it doesn't always happen, but I feel like it happens about half the time, and I still consider that a win. So in this case, it happens to be some homemade kimchi, but usually it's sauerkraut, because sauerkraut is a lot easier to make. Now, this winter salad that I'm making for you is something that does require a little bit more work up front, but if you're willing to do it, you're going to end up with an incredibly gorgeous salad. And this is something that's pretty enough to take to a gathering, a party, a potluck. In fact, I have taken it to a family gathering before, and someone came up to me and said, hey, thank you for bringing this, because with all of the indulgent food around, it's nice to have something that's a little bit lighter too. So, you know, in the right crowd, it might be appreciated. And all I do is I just slice up some avocado, and I am supreming a grapefruit, which is just a fancy word for sectioning, cutting off all the pith, all the white stuff, and then you section it out. And you might think this is unnecessary, but it does really add to, you don't get the bitterness of the pith, and then also it results in a more colorful salad too. Now, once you finish supreming your grapefruit, don't throw out the leftover portion of it, because we're going to use it in a second. I honestly had so much fun putting this salad together, I just couldn't get over the colors. Okay, remember that part of the grapefruit that I just told you to save? Well, we're going to use it in the dressing. I was looking at the leftover portion that I had, and it was quite a bit, and I was like, oh, it's a shame to just put it in the compost pile. I was like, well, maybe I could use it as the acid component for the dressing. So that's what I did, and I thought it worked pretty nicely. So I just squeezed all of the juice out. To my freshly squeezed grapefruit juice, I added a little dollop of Dijon mustard, about a teaspoon and a half, and some freshly ground black pepper and some salt. Then I added some olive oil and I just shook it up, and you just drizzle this over the salad right before you're going to serve it. I hope this video gave you some simple ideas for some no-frills healthy eating during the holidays, and I hope you enjoy this season with your loved ones. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you all again soon.